So, first impression of the enhanced games? That was a bit of a disaster, wasn't it? 42 athletes competed across 18 events, and we saw one measly world record, an event that the same guy already broke the world record in last year. Dude just got paid $1 million to beat his PB. So if you think about it that way, this was an even bigger disaster than it already was. This whole event's marketing was centered around athletes juiced to the gills. World records would be smashed.
My PB is 9.76. I will destroy the world record soon.
But as the event was slowly creeping towards an end, without a world record at this point, the casters were already dampening the blows with some pretty hard copes.
And I think a lot of people have come into today expecting world records to drop. Training camp for 4 months. They were able to enhance for 2 months. It's not a defeat. It is an example of you can enter into a protocol, clinical oversight with enhancers and step into it. So I wouldn't...
From smashing world records to look at these older athletes hitting PBs, not a very good look.
59.4 backing up. This dude's 34 years of age.
To be fair, that is an impressive feat, but probably not the one they were looking for. And that was really only in the swimming, which had an advantage on top of an advantage, since not only they were doping, but they were also wearing laser swimsuits, the ones that were banned in 2010 or 2009 after athletes wearing them broke 93 world records. No other event was able to use banned tech. Sprinters weren't running with fans behind their back or with banned super shoes. Weightlifters didn't use exoskeletons, I guess. Not sure what can illegally help a lifter here. And to be honest, after the whole event, I'd argue swimmers were the only athletes to see a real benefit since they were already using a very effective banned suit. While track athletes specifically saw nothing remotely close to a world record, and get this, not even a single personal best. And genuinely, a lot of these athletes had never looked worse, multiple of them having run faster in high school. So let's take a look at some of these races in case you haven't already. On the men's, Fred Kerley went 9.93 in the heats, followed by Matadi and Marvin Bracey-Williams, a world champ silver medalist, in 10.33. Not looking very promising already. And then the final was just a rerun of the same race. Kerley winning the grand prize with a 9.97 this time.
With 4 coming down the stretch, Kerley is going to take it.
And the highlight being that there were 4 false starts before the race, because of course there was. This isn't a sanctioned race where false starts matter. So Fred was noticeably mad after the run, blaming false starts at the unsanctioned drug Olympics for his time just missing the world record, before finally getting on mic and graciously shit-talking his opponents for being enhanced and still not beating him.
Man, they gotta do better than that. They need to train a little harder, get on that shit a little bit more, and go a little harder some more.
Do you think if it would have gone off first time, you could have had a shot?
I'm ready to run fast.
Which is really rich, coming from a guy serving a ban for dodging drug tests. And believe it or not, on the program they do specify who was racing enhanced, but this basically just means Kerley, who wasn't enhanced, wasn't on their protocol specifically. But Fred Kerley antics aside, to say this was slow is a severe understatement. I wasn't lying when I said these athletes ran slower than their high school times. Marvin Bracey-Williams ran 10.25 in high school, Michael Bryan ran a 10.53 freshman year of college, and Clarence Manyai ran a 10.56 in senior year of high school. So you know, I do gotta hand it to them, these guys are doing a good job of making the enhanced games look shit. I do gotta admit though, if this was a standard track meet, Kerley's time is actually a pretty decent season opener considering the time of year. I can honestly say I expected less considering he isn't race sharp in the slightest. But this isn't that. It's the drug Olympics after a lot of shameless world record talk.
My PB is 9.76. I will destroy the world record soon. I'm very confident. I'm locked in. I'm training good. Body feel good. Who gonna stop me besides myself?
Now, I wouldn't usually go out of my way to say something like this about an athlete, but Fred Kerley is an utter idiot. And that's me being as polite as possible. No one in the track space had a shred of belief this bozo was going under 9.8, let alone 9.58, because he does this same world record song and dance every year since his 9.76. World record this, then he runs 10 seconds. World record that, false starts, which ironically, he did today in the heats as well. We see it so much, Bolt doesn't even know how to respond anymore. Kerley had to go to an entire new space with an audience that didn't know him to start the I'll break the world record charade again. And then he got nowhere near it again. On one hand though, he did walk out with 250k, you can't bag him for that. But yeah, Kerley isn't playing a character, he really is just like this.
Man, they gotta do better than that.
And then there was the women's race. Tristan Evelyn, 11:25, 0.76 seconds away from the world record.
Now in lane 3, it's Tristan Evelyn to the finish line.
If you know track, that is unfathomably embarrassing. But for the few who stumbled upon here at the will of the algorithm, firstly, that wouldn't qualify you for an Olympics. There is no chance you'd win a race in a professional field, and this year, 2 14-year-old girls have actually run faster than that. So if everyone being on drugs was an issue, at the bare minimum, those girls are probably clean. This field was real bottom of the barrel B-listers, and I've heard it was the same for some of the women's swimming fields. Olympians who couldn't get out of the heats, and some who didn't even get out of national championships. The only saving grace being that the winner was clean, and again, got a fat paycheck, so props to her. Overall though, unequivocally a huge joke. With fields of these caliber, some running their first race in years, world records were never in the conversation to start with, and teeters on false marketing. And if you recall, I mentioned earlier, not a single athlete on the track ran close to their PR. But even that's kind of underselling how bad it really was. Because between every athlete on the track, they were nearly half a second behind their PRs on average. Absolutely incredible. So I guess if there is one positive takeaway from this, it's that hard work is actually significantly better than doping. Thanks Enhanced Games. But that's enough track, let's give some of the other events a look. We did see a near world record very early in the men's 100 meter freestyle.
Going for the record,
46.6! Oh, just misses the world.
Before the eventual world record in the event's finale, the men's 50 meter freestyle. But again, as an asterisk, they're doping and using banned tech, and they were also accused of time fudging. But on-screen graphics aren't accurate, we learnt that at the Paris Olympics. Only the people on the back know what the clock really said, and it was probably real. Though Bjornsson, the mountain and current deadlift world record holder, couldn't break his own world record, but the strongman sport is already unregulated, there is no governing body drug testing, so this was just another world record attempt for him, but for $1 million. In weightlifting, we saw some tantrums.
he's so close. Oh, the defeat is so painful.
So to sum it up, some of the events were jokes, some events were good, world records weren't broken, and a few clean athletes beat out doped fields. But I think the big question that was left unanswered for many casual viewers was, are all Olympians on PEDs? Since clearly, these guys couldn't do any better than them. And the answer is, not all of them, and it's not that simple. Elite athletes in all major sport, emphasis on all major sport, where lots of money to be made, are in a constant rat race with drug testing, resulting in, at best, no drugs, which we saw with the supposedly unenhanced athletes winning events, or at worst, microdosing and masking agents. So the benefit isn't as big as we'd like to imagine, but it's definitely there. But you give these subpar, aging out, retired, or straight up banned athletes harder drugs, it's not going to close the distance on history's best at the very peak of their powers. Plus, if you do recall this desk segment,
these athletes had a training camp for 4 months. They were able to enhance for 2 months.
They weren't even given enough time anyway. But overall, the event did succeed in fulfilling a weird but pretty common morbid curiosity of fully drugged up athletes versus world records, while giving us a pretty clear reflection on where society is headed. That being the rising normalization of PEDs. And crazy take here, frankly, I don't like it. This essentially was a bunch of disadvantaged athletes, many of which who were never good enough at the top level, or weren't paid enough during their career, or had retired due to age/financial reasons, and dangling a fat paycheck of more money than ever seen in their sport to be experimented on. This event was basically a Mr. Beast video, but actually doing something morally questionable and selling us drugs instead of candy bars. And the worst part is, I can almost guarantee this event will grow. Even if it seemed like a failure from an outside perspective, the numbers were pretty good, it had a wide reach, and the money paid to the athletes was real too. Which, if the better alternative for elite athletes to make money is coming here, more athletes will sign on next year, and more the next year, and so forth. But unlike World Athletics, which tries to regulate, there will be no attempt at a middleman trying to govern doping and keep the sport semi-clean. The enhanced games will be openly selling you performance-enhancing drug cocktails. But in the wider scope of media and social media, this is all just a drop in the pond of the current growing trend that is normalizing drugs in our society. Fitness influencers are becoming more open about their drug stack. There's already a huge, continuously growing looks-maxing subculture that openly pushes the idea of using steroids, peptides, testosterone, even cosmetic surgery. And Ozempic is a bloody over-the-counter drug in some countries. Although this event was a colossal failure in the message it tried to send, performance-enhancing drugs are seeping their way into our culture, becoming normalized, and I just fucking hate it. And that is my take on the enhanced games. I hope it doesn't last, and I hope it wakes up world athletics a little bit, even if just to pay our athletes a little bit more to keep them here. Back to our regularly scheduled athletics next week. See you all next time.